Today I'm gonna talk why I think Black Myth Wukong is definitely a wake-up call for the gaming industry, and I'm gonna go into depth on my thoughts and why I think like this game is actually, in my opinion, better than Elden Ring. But before I start, I just want to put out the disclaimer that I haven't finished the game, but I played the first three chapters. I'm currently playing chapter 4, but I think I can still give an like answer on why I think like Black Myth Wukong is better than Elden Ring, or simply one of the best games this year. Maybe going as far as to say that it might be one of the best games ever made. But it's not without flaws, but yeah, we'll get into that. But I think like the bosses I want to talk about first. So for me, right, the bosses will also tie into the combat. The bosses, oh my word, there's so many bosses. As you can see in the background, if you like dragons, you can fight dragons. And the fact that like they have such a wide range like of movesets, and some of the bosses that I've fought up to this point has like 3 phases. Like for reals, dude, I'm not gonna lie, bruh. Each phase feels different. I'm gonna shoot this video in one go, so if I make mistakes, bear with me. But anyway, depending on how you want to play, so you don't have to, like, if you look in the background, you don't have to use like your summons, like people say, to make the game easier. For me, in my case, I just want to get through the content as quick as possible. For me, because like as a small channel, you don't have necessarily the time to like invest too much time if you're not necessarily going to get views for it. So you would rather want to just like get through as much content as quick as possible. However, if I were to compare this game to Elden Ring, like for instance, I found that like Elden Ring, you can have a build that can make the game like simply broken. However, I never felt up to this point that if you have a certain build, that the bosses were like extremely easy. No ways. This game always finds a way to humble you, to humble your playing style that you have been using maybe since chapter 1 and you haven't changed your build. And which brings me to another thing. I'm just gonna like continue as I'm going. This game has an infinite amount of like, you have an infinite amount of like times to respec or change your build, which I appreciate. If I were to compare it like to like a Dark Souls game such as like Elden Ring, you would have to have a level tier, and there's only a limited amount of that. So it kind of sucks because it's just unnecessary. Like, if a build doesn't work, then surely like you should be able to change it, because I mean, I bought the game and I want to finish it, but I simply can't finish it if I can't change my build, because I know it's not right. After a few tries, you will see that the boss obviously like is immune to this, or it has a counter for this. But anyway, so in this game up to this point, what I've noticed with some of the boss fights are like, it's not unfair, but it's something I haven't seen in recent games such as God of War, and like where you have like 2 phases maybe of a boss fight. And what's interesting to me is like there's 3 phases, and sometimes they throw in just a little bit of a curveball. So like chapter 2's boss, when you fight him, there's like almost like a timer that's going back, like going down in the background. So the faster you deal damage, you can avoid this like annoying, there's gonna be spoiler territory, but this annoying sandstorm that you can't see. So it makes the fight unnecessarily harder than it is. There is a relic you're supposed to get that makes the fight a lot easier, but I did it the hard way, and yeah, but it was a lot more satisfying in my opinion to beat the boss that way. Wukong in the Western journal, or like if I could say like comics, Chinese comics, he needs his item to defeat this boss, but in this game I did it without it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that they didn't really let you like struggle since you don't have that item. But anyway, that was interesting for me. And as I moved on to chapter 3, the final boss there was another trick they added, which makes this game actually unique. And it's really a wake-up call to how bosses should be made. Like, it has phases, but the gimmick here was if you fight the boss, there's certain like scripted scenes where you take damage. You really don't have control over that. But I found it interesting because it adds this element of like, wow, I really can't play recklessly. I can't heal all the time. So I need to be careful. And the only downside for me was like I had a build that wasn't specifically right for that fight. You can't use summons and you can't use, if I say summons, I mean my clones. You can't use the set of clones. Um, and you can't use the immobilization, but basically the freezing spell, if I could say it like that. And this was cool because what's the point in putting a mechanics in a game if it's just broken and or the bosses, like, it's fun that the boss actually has counters. This boss fight is a hidden boss fight in the background, and it was also one of the coolest boss fights because, again, like each boss felt so much different. Um, like what was cool about this specific boss fight is like as it does this like drums, like drumming the ground, it has this like lightning you'll see in the background that's just kind of like going with the beat, and that was so cool. However, your playing style, you have to adapt, because I didn't know that. In the video in the background, you can see I used my pillar stance, and it's a way of countering it because you're not on the ground and you don't have to worry about taking damage. If you eventually get hit, as you will see in a moment, you literally, it's just, you're stuck, you can't heal, which makes this fight a bit like harder. But it's instances like this for me, like that just is different, man. Like I've never seen so many boss fights that feels different, and along with it, it comes like with fast-paced action, which takes me to another point. If you do these boss fights, you will start to notice a pattern of you need to actually strategize before you fight bosses, because doing the same thing will just result in the same outcome. What that means is you have to change your build, which I've mentioned before, but at the same time, it's like you have to literally plan the full fight. You have to time when you're going to use your transformation, because some of the transformations kind of saves you. If you're low, you can transform and you can't die in the state. The only thing that can happen is your transformation can, like, it forces you to de-transform, which then essentially means that you obviously go back to your normal form and then you can die. But as you saw in the background, I also noticed that if you use this cloud step, you can take damage with AoE attacks, so that was interesting for me. But you love and you learn. But I'm digressing. The reason why I want to talk about this game is like literally it is so good. It might be my favorite game of all time. And it's because it took, like, the developers made cell phone games and they were dominating the space in China, and they decided, we want a piece of that pie, like, of the gaming market, where it's like, maybe if I could call it like the western side of the world, where they have like PS5 exclusives like The Last of Us, God of War, games that have been dominating. And yeah, simply the western part of the world hasn't had any competition. So this is a wake-up call from China, because a lot of people might argue also that, like, okay, flip, China has a lot of people. That's why, like, the game sold so much. Like, I mean, in the first 2 days or something, I think it hit like something like 10 million copies, like, that was sold. And the amount of people that played this game, like, at a peak, was over 2 million on Steam. That's just Steam alone. We're not talking about PS5 or anything. The numbers might even be like flip. It's really not good data to use, but you can use it to maybe supplement your argument. Say like, this game is pretty much really successful and it's raking in a lot of money for game science. And part of the reason why this game is so successful in sales is because it's good, let's be honest. But the marketing for this game has been around, bro. Like, I didn't even own a PS5 at the time. And when I saw the trailers, every single gameplay, I was like hyped, just as everyone else. Like, flip, dude, this game was massive before it even like was released. Some people even like thought this game was not gonna release at all, which I understand, because I mean, I also thought like this game is taking way too much to develop. But another reason why this game is successful is they utilized Unreal Engine 5. The graphics looks insane, and the way they used it or utilized it was like, I'm not familiar with the terms, but basically put in simple terms, it's like the lighting is more realistic, and like they found a way, I think it's nanotech or something, they found a way that like if you just tweak certain things, like smaller details, it actually helps with the performance, and it doesn't dampen it or make it worse. Now, although this game does have its flaws when it comes to performance, but overall for me, like, you can really ignore those performance issues if the game is really good, and it doesn't really impact the fights you have with bosses to the point where it's just simply annoying. For me, I never experienced that, so therefore I think it's safe to say that nothing, like no bugs in this game is game breaking or anything. I do have to mention that at some point, I think for before the first patch, there was a way you could infinitely use spells and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend playing the game that way, because it's way more satisfying playing the game how it was intended to be played. But yeah, like for me overall, like I would just like to say, like, this game I would recommend to anyone, right? Because it's game changing. Not just bosses, the story as well, bro. Like, I mean, you in chapter 3, and I'm pretty sure you haven't even like, or I'm in chapter 4, but you haven't really begin to scratch the surface. There's so much side content, dude. Like, look at these bosses. This is all just side content. I missed this by just not like, I focused on the main pathway, but I was like, yo, I need to go back, because there's techniques I could get, there's transformations which will bring me to the combat. Like, I want to talk about the combat as well, but transformations, and these things are essential, to be honest, because it really if I say, like, the way the combat works, it makes it really deep. Like, flip, you think like, okay, you can just spam like maybe like a light attack or a heavy attack, but the combat is way more deeper than that if you really delve in and understand and try to master the combat. So, which like brings me to the combat. So, for me, you have a light attack and a heavy attack. You don't have combos. The combos you have to unlock with each stance. You get the pillar stance, and then more like, I forgot all the stances, but basically you have like the stance that I used is more like for close range. The pillar stance is more like for like if there's AoE attacks on the ground, you can then use it to stand up, and it's also to land a devastating attack and stun your enemies. And then you also have like the where you can extend your pole, if I can say, or your stuff. I'm sorry for not knowing the stances, but because I'm winging this, but you get the point. The combat is so nice because even though you can upgrade your stuff and do more damage, it doesn't seem like you're OP or anything. I know I've seen a lot of videos, people talking about there's a lot of OP builds, and that might be true to some extent, but I never felt like I had a build that's broken, to be honest. The spells and the way you utilize can make yourself broken. So the way combat works is you have a spell that can freeze people. You have a spell that you can unlock also eventually when you can summon mini versions of yourself. Depending on how much skill points you invest into them, it can really like do damage. I just want to talk about this fight as well. The annoying part is you can't hit the back, you have to stay at the front. But I actually have to talk about these boss fights as well. They are a bit annoying, but the reason why I love this fight is I actually, when I was younger, I used to love this idea of fighting like huge creatures. But I also knew that it literally causes limitations, such as like camera angles being like weird, and imagine fighting a boss and the camera angle at the same time. So, but I could forgive it because at least there's variety in sizes in the enemies. Like it feels like actually like you're not just fighting mobs and bosses your size. You actually feel immersed into the game because you literally can take on literally any size of an enemy, whether you're just hitting the feet and knocking them down and just getting that damage. This feels really satisfying. So it's really something different and something that I haven't experienced in such a long time, and it really scratches that urge or that itch that I've been having. Like God of War used to have it, but they kind of probably moved away from it because of camera angle issues and people complaining about it. I think you must take risks, because if even if one item is broken or like not like nice to experience, the overall experience and the ambition sometimes makes up for that, I believe. In the end, I think the in the end, you say, what do they say? the the means, but the point is like whatever they did, it worked for me at least, because I got a good experience. um the end justified the means. That's what I was trying to get. But for me, like, this game is just simply amazing, dude. Like, and if you're a girl, but I would really want to point out that this game is by no means easy. And if you've made it through the video this far, I never addressed why I said like Elden Ring is this game is better than Elden Ring. Boss wise, this bosses beat Elden Ring. It doesn't feel like the game is unfair. It just seems really, really well balanced. There is some fights that are a bit annoying, but once you get it down, you start to master the combat, and it always feels fresh. I never don't hear or listen to people that says this game is repetitive. It's by no means repetitive. What I also like about this game over Elden Ring is the fact that when you move, the world doesn't feel like it's linear, but it's semi-open. Because if you miss an area, flip, like, you just go, and it's kind of cool that how you can miss a section and a boss and all those things, and the game will still feel good, but you kind of, it's not like in Elden Ring where I missed that quest line and I could have gotten that weapon. But the fact that if you get that weapon you have to respec and all those things, that kind of sucks. For me, having the ability to just respec at any time, infinite amount of times, that's just good. And I also found that like you can go back if you miss quest and finish them and experience the boss fights. You just obviously have to watch guides, and yeah, you can get weapons, you can get effects along with those weapons, and relics as well. Relics are really important in this game because basically you have to get all 6 relics that are important to summon Wukong. Spoiler alert. But the thing is, I'm currently working on the 4th relic, which is cool. And there's a story, and I also want to talk about the music. This game, Elden Ring may have better music, but I feel like this game, bruh, overall, I think like all the stuff that Elden Ring like didn't like add, right? They could have, like, they decided, like, Game Science decided, listen, these people are afraid of like straying away from the normal formula. Let's do this. Let's add those things. And it's like, if you die, you respawn, but you don't lose progress. Too much progress. Let me just say it like that. That's so good, bro. It's not frustrating and annoying dying to like small enemies and then losing your all your progress. I know that they did move away from it in the DLC in Elden Ring, but it's still annoying in a base game. So there's a lot of things that this game just simply does better than Elden Ring, and I would like really recommend this game to you. I could go in more depth, but I think I've covered most of it. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and if there's more points you may thought like I didn't go into depth, comment in the comment section below and I'll get to it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Subscribe if you have not, like, share, comment, and I will respond to all your comments and we can have a simple conversation. GG's guys. Bye.